You can have money in your bank account and still feel completely broke. Maybe you have $800, maybe $2,000, but one surprise expense can erase it. A car repair, medical bill, family emergency, or slow month at work suddenly turns your savings into a memory. And you find yourself thinking, I'm starting over again. So you work more. You save a little. You promise yourself next month will be different. Then another expense appears, and somehow you are back where you started. Meanwhile, the internet keeps telling you to invest, build a business, buy assets, and make your money work for you. But when you have almost nothing saved, where does that money come from? When your savings are tiny, money does not feel like an investment tool. It feels like oxygen. You are not thinking about becoming wealthy. You are thinking about getting through Friday. But there is a point where money starts to feel different. Not because you suddenly become rich, but because your financial decisions stop being controlled by every little emergency. For many people, $10,000 is an important milestone. It is not a magic number, and it is not enough to solve every financial problem. But it can create something incredibly valuable, room to breathe. And that room changes more than your bank balance. It can change how you think, how you respond to problems, what risks you can take, and which opportunities you can realistically consider. Because the real transformation is not that you have $10,000. The transformation is that you no longer have to make every financial decision from a position of panic. Think about what happens when you have almost no cash buffer. A flat tire is not just a flat tire. It becomes a credit card balance, a payment, interest, and another month of financial pressure. Now imagine the same problem when you have meaningful savings. The repair is still annoying. The money still leaves your account. But the emergency does not automatically become debt. That difference is enormous. The expense did not change. Your income did not change. Your car did not suddenly become cheaper. What changed was your ability to absorb the hit. Imagine you have $1,000 saved and your car suddenly needs a $1,200 repair. You may have to borrow, use credit, delay the repair, or rearrange your entire month. Now imagine you have $10,000. That same $1,200 repair hurts, but it does not have to become a financial crisis. You pay it, deal with the problem, and rebuild. Your balance might fall to $8,800, and that can feel frustrating. But there is a huge psychological difference between losing part of your savings and losing your financial stability. This is why savings are not just about having money available. Savings create options. And when you have options, you can make decisions based on what is best instead of what is immediately possible. That matters because ordinary life is full of financially inconvenient events. Cars break, appliances fail, work hours change, bills arrive at exactly the wrong time. None of those things are especially unusual. They are simply part of being an adult. The problem is that without a cash buffer, normal life can become expensive debt. And debt can create a second problem after the first one is gone. You are still paying for yesterday's emergency while today's paycheck is trying to cover today's life. That is how people get trapped. One emergency creates debt. The debt reduces monthly cash flow. Reduced cash flow makes saving harder. Then the next emergency creates even more debt. Breaking that cycle is one of the biggest reasons the first meaningful savings milestone matters. It gives you a chance to stop reacting and start planning. There is also a psychological shift. When you repeatedly prove that you can save money and leave it alone, you begin trusting yourself with money. That sounds simple, but it is powerful. Your savings balance becomes evidence that your decisions can produce a result, even when that result takes months or years. The first layer is your immediate emergency cushion. Depending on your situation, that might be your first $1,000 or $2,000 dedicated to genuine surprises. It is there for the broken laptop you actually need for work, the urgent repair, the unexpected bill, or another expense that cannot reasonably wait until next month. The second layer is stability. This is where your savings start covering a meaningful portion of essential expenses, giving you more protection if income suddenly becomes uncertain. The exact amount depends on your household, job stability, debt, dependence, and monthly expenses. There is no universal emergency fund number that works perfectly for everyone. Then there is the money above your immediate safety needs. This is where savings can eventually become a bridge toward bigger goals, rather than simply a shield against emergencies. That could mean investing, paying down expensive debt, developing a valuable skill, changing jobs, buying equipment for a business, or simply creating more flexibility in your life. But there is an important distinction. Your emergency money and your long-term investment money should not automatically have the same job. If you invest money you may need next month, you are exposing short-term necessities to market risk. A stock market decline does not care that your car suddenly needs repairs. A stronger system separates protection from growth. Cash can handle near-term uncertainty, while long-term investments can pursue long-term growth when you can afford to leave them alone. And that separation can make investing emotionally easier. If the market falls, you are less likely to panic sell simply because an unrelated bill showed up. This is one reason the first $10,000 can indirectly support long-term wealth building. It gives your investments a better chance to stay invested through the normal ups and downs of markets. Now think about your job. When you have almost nothing saved, your paycheck has enormous power over your decisions. You might stay in a job you hate because missing even one paycheck feels impossible. You might accept bad terms, avoid negotiating, or turn down a better opportunity because the transition feels financially dangerous. Savings do not mean you should quit impulsively. They do something more useful. They give you the ability to evaluate choices without every decision feeling like a survival test. Maybe you can search for another job while still employed. Maybe you can negotiate instead of immediately accepting the first offer. Maybe you can survive a short gap between paychecks. That flexibility can have a financial value of its own. Sometimes the best financial decision is not the one that saves $10 today. It is the one that prevents a much bigger mistake later. But reaching $10,000 creates another danger: lifestyle inflation. You finally see 5 figures in your account, and suddenly your brain starts spending the money before you have even decided what it is for. A vacation sounds reasonable. A newer phone sounds reasonable. A nicer car sounds reasonable. One purchase becomes another, and the financial cushion slowly turns back into consumption. There is nothing wrong with enjoying money. The problem is confusing financial stability with permission to immediately increase your lifestyle. Your first serious savings milestone should feel almost boring. It is not money you need to show anyone. It is money whose job is to quietly make your future less fragile. So how do you actually get there if $10,000 currently feels enormous? Start with the amount your real life can support, not the amount that looks impressive on social media. If you can save $250 a month, $10,000 takes 40 months before considering interest. That is more than 3 years, but it is also a completely achievable mathematical path. At $500 a month, the same target takes 20 months. At $1,000 a month, it takes 10 months. The point is not choosing the fastest number. The point is choosing one you can sustain. Slow progress becomes powerful when you stop interrupting it. A plan that works for 3 years is more valuable than an aggressive plan you abandon after 6 weeks. Next, automate the process. If you wait until the end of every month to save whatever happens to remain, your spending will usually find a way to consume the remainder. Instead, give your savings a job before your discretionary spending gets involved. Even a smaller automatic transfer can build consistency and make the decision happen without a monthly debate. And separate the account. If your emergency savings sits beside your everyday spending money, it becomes psychologically easier to treat it as available cash. You do not need to make the money impossible to reach. Just create enough separation that buying something online requires a conscious decision instead of one effortless tap. Then look at windfalls differently. A bonus, tax refund, gift, freelance payment, or money from selling and used items can accelerate your foundation dramatically. You do not have to save every unexpected dollar, but directing part of those temporary income boosts toward a permanent financial cushion can shorten the journey substantially. And please do not build your entire strategy around cutting coffee. Small purchases can matter, but the biggest recurring expenses usually deserve the biggest attention. Housing, transportation, food, insurance, subscriptions, and high-interest debt can have a much larger impact on your monthly cash flow than a few small treats. If your housing cost is too high, your car payment is crushing your budget, and expensive debt is absorbing your income, saving another $10 from coffee will not solve the underlying problem. Look for the leaks that repeat every month. One major recurring expense can sometimes create more savings capacity than dozens of tiny sacrifices. Now let's talk about what happens after you reach the milestone. This is where the strategy changes. Before financial stability, your priority is protection. You are building cash reserves, controlling expensive debt, reducing unnecessary obligations, and creating enough breathing room that one surprise does not automatically derail the month. Once that foundation is strong enough for your situation, your attention can gradually shift toward growth. Investing, retirement, skills, career development, business, and other long-term goals. And this is where the snowball can become interesting. You are no longer using every extra dollar to repair yesterday. More of your money can finally start working toward tomorrow. For example, imagine you eventually invest $300 every month after your financial foundation is established. The contribution itself is predictable. The future return is not. If you assume a hypothetical 7% average annual return for illustration, those monthly contributions could grow substantially over decades. But markets do not deliver a guaranteed 7% every year. Some years can be strongly positive. Others can be negative. The important lesson is not the exact projection. It is that consistency and time matter enormously when money can remain invested. And that brings us back to the $10,000 milestone. The money itself is useful, but the behavior you build while reaching it may be even more valuable. You learn how to delay spending. You learn how to plan for irregular expenses. You learn how to automate. You learn that a boring financial system can outperform constant financial improvisation. Then something subtle happens. You stop seeing every paycheck as money that must immediately be consumed. You begin seeing part of your income as capital for future decisions. That is a major identity shift. You are no longer only asking, "What can I afford this month?" You are starting to ask, "What can this money help me build?" And the answer might eventually include retirement. In 2026, for example, the IRS allows up to $24,500 in employee elective deferrals to most 401k plans, subject to the applicable rules. For IRAs, the 2026 combined contribution limit for traditional and Roth IRAs is $7,500, or $8,600 for people eligible for the age-based catch-up contribution. You do not need to maximize every account immediately. The point is that once your foundation is stable, you have more room to make deliberate long-term choices. Consider two people with similar incomes. One constantly resets to zero after unexpected expenses. The other automatically builds savings every month and protects the money once it reaches meaningful levels. Their incomes might look almost identical from the outside, but their financial lives can feel completely different because their systems are different. One person experiences an emergency and asks, "How am I going to pay for this?" The other asks, "How much will this set me back? And how quickly can I rebuild?" That second question is powerful. It assumes the problem is temporary. It assumes the financial foundation can recover. It turns an emergency from an identity crisis into a problem to solve. That is why I would not call $10,000 a magic wealth number. It is better understood as a behavioral milestone, a point where your financial system can start giving you choices. Before that foundation, money is often defensive. You are trying to prevent disaster. Afterward, assuming your essential needs are protected, more of your attention can move toward building something. You can think about better work. You can develop a skill. You can invest for the long term. You can pay down expensive debt. You can plan instead of constantly reacting. And maybe the biggest change is that you begin believing progress is possible. Not because someone online told you that wealth is easy, but because you have personally watched yourself build something. If you start at zero, you may think $10,000 belongs to a completely different kind of person. Then you save the first 100, then 500, then 1,000. Eventually, the number that once looked impossible becomes a balance you recognize. And that experience changes your expectations about what else you might be capable of building. You do not need to save $10,000 this year. You do not need a perfect budget. You do not need to sacrifice every enjoyable part of your life. You need a repeatable system, a realistic monthly target, automatic transfers, fewer major leaks, a plan for unexpected income, and the discipline to protect the foundation once you build it. Because the real goal is not to look rich. It is to become difficult to knock off course. A broken car should be a problem, not the beginning of a financial collapse. That is what changes when you finally save $10,000. You do not become financially invincible. You simply become more prepared, more flexible, and less dependent on everything going perfectly. And once you experience that stability, the next question becomes much more interesting. Instead of asking, how do I survive this? You can finally start asking, what can I build next? That is where real wealth building begins. Not with $1 million, not with a perfect investment, but with enough stability to make better financial decisions over and over again.